next session is with James Park, the CEO and co-founder of Fitbit. The initial instinct of product designers and engineers is to put as much into a device as possible, to create the biggest, baddest device out there. And this is not always simply the right choice when it comes to consumers. Understanding who your users are, how they want to wear their devices, and what the most important pieces of information they can be shown on the device are critical to wearable success. As the category moves to the more advanced sensors, the key is to choose the right combination for an ever-demanding consumer base. Fitbit CEO James Park will examine the evolution of wearable design from the basic pedometers, considered the gold standard a handful of years ago, to the advanced array of wearables seen today. Please join me in welcoming James Park.
Thanks, everyone. So quickly go through a short presentation and then open the floor up to questions. So James Park, co-founder and CEO of Fitbit. Started Fitbit in early 2007 with my co-founder, Eric. We're based in San Francisco. We're about 500 employees right now. And I think when we started the company, the notion of wearables still, I don't think was very popular at all. In fact, when we tried to raise money for the company, there was a lot of skepticism and a lot of investors questioning, who would want this type of device, et cetera. So it's been a long and fun, but funny years. The original inspiration for the company, really driven by observation of users and how they interact with technology and how it lets them meet their goals and have them have a lot of fun at the same time. So it was actually late 2006. I was one of the first people to buy the Nintendo Wii, waited at Best Buy at 6 a.m. for 3 hours to get it. And took it home, and I was just really amazed by the way Nintendo had combined motion sensors, which at the time were not very prevalent technology in the consumer space, with amazing software, and through things like Wii Bowling, Wii Tennis, other Wii sports games, made fitness and video gaming very active and positive. Unlike the normal association you have with games or couch potatoes, people are out of shape, et cetera. And Eric, my co-founder, and I thought, how do we capture a lot of this magic and joy that people have and put it into a more portable form? And so the first thing we did was kind of look at what was out there. And what was out there were old school pedometers. And pedometers have been around for quite a long time. This is actually my co-founder Eric's old school pedometer collection. I think the very first pedometers were conceived, I heard from late 18th century. Started off mechanical. I think by the time we started the company, these were some of the more state-of-the-art ones, digital pedometers, some of them using MEMS sensors. And we thought, well, there must be a better way to do this for consumers. They weren't very attractive looking, not very well designed. So some of the very first steps that Eric and I took were talking to potential users of a more advanced device and even existing pedometers, and trying to figure out what their shortcomings were, what people wanted in a device. And we printed a lot of 3D prototypes, a lot of different forms, shapes, et cetera, and gave them to users. And one of the more interesting insights that we had from our users early on was that a lot of women told us, hey, look, all these pedometers are really big. I'd really like to be able to stick one in my bra, but I can't. They're huge. So it'd be great if I could have a device that was small enough that I could do that. So that really influenced our thinking on our very first device, which we call the Fitbit Classic today. But it was a pretty slim form factor, wireless. It was an integrated clip because people wanted to clip these things either to their bra or to their pocket, et cetera. So we designed that shape, designed that function directly into that shape. And it proved to be extremely popular. I think we announced the product TechCrunch 50 in 2008. And Eric told me, hey, look, I don't know who would be crazy enough to give us their credit card information for this product because our website is really terrible, had very little information on the product. And he said, I think only 5 people give us their credit card information. Told them, I think you're being way too pessimistic. I think there'll be about 50. And by the end of the first day, we had about 2,000 pre-orders. So we knew we were onto something. Now, if you look at the market, there's an incredible range of different devices targeting different price points, different feature sets, different consumer needs in terms of aesthetics. And throughout that, we've actually learned a lot of things, and I walked through some of the small challenges and some of the large challenges that we've had and some of our competitors have had. So how do you put a wrist wearable on your wrist? Seems like an easy problem, but it's actually something that our mechanical engineering team struggled with pretty early on. So we didn't want to have what's a typical watch buckle and tang, as they call it, in our Fitbit Flex wrist-based device. So we decided upon a peg and hole system, but we had a lot of problems early on with the balance between making it very easy to clasp the device versus the retention force to keep the device on people's wrists. And a lot of it had to do with tweaking the hardness of the elastomer that we used, the shape of the pegs, et cetera, and went through many, many different iterations of shapes. And even with the launch of the Fitbit Flex a couple years ago, we did not get it right at the launch, and we suffered a lot of people just losing their devices. It would snag on something. So it's actually been 2 years of trying to fine-tune a lot of different aspects of the clasping mechanism. And this is a problem that we see in a lot of competitive devices as well, where devices will get snagged on clothing, fly off, the elastomer loses its stiffness over time, and devices just pop out. So it's kind of interesting to watch everybody learn from each other over the past few years. Some of our more advanced devices, like the Fitbit Surge, which we just announced that we're shipping today, some of the challenges include trying to avoid putting too much into a device. We have a lot of engineers in the company. I think the first instinct is to say, hey, look, what are all the things we can cram into a device? But that's not how you create a great product. With the Fitbit Surge in particular, we focused a lot on battery life. We had a target battery life of about 7 days in mind. And really, what we put in, the shape of the device, the size, was dictated a lot by trying to maintain that key consumer feature and need. And we still managed to pack a lot of sensors into it at the end of the day. The Fitbit Surge has 8 sensors, including continuous heart rate, GPS, gyroscope, compass, a couple accelerometers, light sensor, touch screen, et cetera, lasting for about 7 days between charges. So, I think we did a fairly successful job of trying to manage all the different constraints in the design, but I wouldn't even say with this, I hope it's a pretty compelling product. It's the product that I wear every day, but we learned a lot from the experience of designing the product, and a lot of what we learned is going to be baked into the future things that we do. So that's a quick walkthrough of Fitbit and some of the recent design challenges that we faced, and I'd love to open the floor up to the questions from the audience.
We have a question for James. Oh, here we go.
In your business model, what was your % replacement of people having to, losing them and having to send them new ones? Because when I was an early user of Fitbit, I lost 3, and you guys sent me 3 new ones. So how was the business model wrapped around that?
It still works out, but for us, we're building a long-term business and brand. So what was important to us was we recognized that we had an issue in our devices when it came to things like retention. And we realized that it wasn't the consumer's fault if they lost the device. So we just focused on consumer satisfaction. And if we had to ship them a free new device the next day, that's just what we would do. And we would just consider it a pretty expensive lesson and hopefully not do that the next time we built a device.
Yes?
What has been the journey of accuracy?
Our philosophy on accuracy has been more about good enough, because I think the the absolute pursuit of accuracy can result in devices that I don't think consumers find very attractive from a size or price point perspective. Very early on, one of our competitors was Body Media, which had a great product, the Body Bug. It was really accurate, backed by a lot of clinical studies, great technology. But that pursuit of accuracy resulted in a form factor that I personally felt was pretty bulky. The price point was expensive. And our device, it wasn't as accurate, I'll admit, but it was very small, lasted a long time, was pretty compact, discreet. And I feel that we made the right trade-offs in terms of that. So our philosophy is, what's good enough accuracy for people's needs? And then you move on to other characteristics.
Hi. As Fitbit grows and becomes more mass, adopted by a broader audience, what are you seeing as far as return rates by consumers or some kind of buyer remorse?
Can't really go into specific numbers, but I think we're pretty happy with the long-term retention and use of our devices, and a lot of it is really not from the hardware itself, although you have to focus on the hardware, but it's really the social layer on top. So there's a lot of families, friends and families who compete with each other, either on leaderboards or challenges, and that's what really keeps people motivated. And if you compare it against solitary experiences like gym memberships or home gym equipment, we find that it's the social experience that really elevates the experience of wearables and the retention of it well above what we typically think of as the fitness experience.
Second question, what do you see the impact on the of Apple Health Kit on Fitbit?
I think Apple Health Kit's pretty interesting. I think they probably still need to make a lot of improvements to it in terms of features and functionality over time. And again, it's something that we're watching with a lot of interest.
Do we have any more questions for James?
What do you think about gamification elements in the fitness industry? Because at the beginning you had this little flower in your devices, and later you left it and from the upcoming devices.
Sorry, are you asking why we abandon certain things, or sorry?
Yeah. Yes.
The lights are blinding. So.
I'm here, on the left. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked it because I think it was fun, and you left it from the upcoming devices, this flower and these gamification elements, and then I'm just interested what you think about gamification in the fitness industry and the future of gamification in the fitness industry.
There are a lot of things that we experimented with. So for those of you who don't know, our first device had this little flower on the screen like a Tamagotchi, and you'd have to move around a certain amount in a certain period of time to keep the flower alive and growing. A lot of people love that. In our future devices, the UI couldn't really support something like that effectively, so we've moved to other things like motivational messages on the device, leaderboards and challenges on the mobile app that are driven from data that we collect from the wearables. I think gamification is pretty important. I think a lot of the early attempts were just about slapping badges on things and hoping that people would be motivated by those, and it works for a while. I think one of the challenges is with gamification, you have to keep things pretty fresh. It's like gaming. I think one of the realizations we had is we can't just release a game-type feature in our app and just let it sit still. We just have to introduce new tweaks to it, new content over time to keep it fresh. So that's one of the key realizations that we made.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah, so I had a question for you. I couldn't agree more with your statement about basically feature creep and complexity creeping into products, creating a lot of problems with customer value. So I'm sure with your success, you're getting a lot of suggestions about new features and new functionality that you could implement. Can you give us some idea how you go about sorting through that and figuring out what things you should include and which things to ignore?
some of it's gut instinct. So if we feel a feature is too gimmicky or not backed enough by science, we won't include it. So for instance, there's a lot of competitive devices that have this feature called Smart Wake, which tries to wake you up at the right time in the morning. That's not something that's difficult to implement, but we didn't feel that it was backed by enough science, so it's just something that we haven't done over the years. Some of the other considerations that we look at is, well, how much battery power is this feature going to consume? If it's super compelling, but we don't feel that a small wearable device can have enough battery capacity to support the feature for a sufficient number of days, it's probably something that we'll continue to look at from an R&D perspective, but not have it slated for any short-term product. So there's a lot of different angles that we look at different features from.